Today I'm diving into the topic of the historiography of the American Civil War. Historians have long debated and interpreted the Civil War, and their own views have evolved over time. The Civil War has been a central topic to historical inquiry for almost 2 centuries. What's so intriguing is how the interpretations of the war have shifted, reflecting both historiographical trends and a broader societal change. In early narratives, historians focused heavily on military strategies and heroisms of individual fighters. These accounts, while exciting, often neglected the deeper causes of the conflict, particularly the institution of slavery. More recent analyses have reframed the Civil War as a struggle deeply rooted in slavery and the American national identity as a whole. This change in perspectives has deepened our understanding of the war's causes and its lasting legacy. My research traces the developments of the Civil War's historiography from the early 20th century up to today, showing how historians have interpreted the war across different eras of American history. One of the earliest influential narratives is the lost cause narrative. This narrative was popularized in the late 19th century and early 20th century. The lost cause presented the Confederacy's efforts as a noble defense of states' rights, conveniently downplaying the role that slavery played in the conflict itself. Edward A. Pollard's book, The Lost Cause, A New Southern History of the War of the Confederates, sets the stage for this myth, framing the Confederacy as a heroic, if tragic, force fighting against Northern aggression. But this interpretation has been heavily criticized for distorting the real causes of the war, especially by modern historians who've worked hard to, in their own way, correct this narrative and correct the record. Between the 1920s and 1940s, progressive historians like Charles A. Beard interpreted the war as primarily an economic conflict. Beard's work, The Rise of American Civilization, argues that economic forces, the industrial North versus an agrarian South, were at the heart of this conflict. While this analysis was groundbreaking at the time, it too has been criticized for essentially oversimplifying the war's complex causes, and essentially the central issue of slavery is again overlooked by this narrative. In the mid-20th century, historians began to focus more on the political, social, and economic factors that made the war seem inevitable. David M. Porter's book, The Impending Crisis, offers a more comprehensive take, showing the political missteps and the growing sectional tensions that led to the war. Yet even Porter's work, though thorough, occasionally downplays the more ideological dimensions, again, especially the fight over slavery. By the 1970s and 80s, new social historians like Eric Foner started challenging these older narratives. Foner's book, Reconstruction, America's Unfinished Revolution, transformed the field by placing slavery and the African American experience at the forefront of his Civil War and Reconstruction narrative. His work shows Reconstruction as a revolutionary movement in American history, highlighting the ongoing struggle for racial equality. From 2010 onward, historians have continued to explore the Civil War's causes and consequences, especially with a focus on identity and even placing the Civil War within a global context. Edward Baptist's The Half Has Never Been Told examines the centrality of slavery to the American economy, while Stephanie McCurry's Confederate Reckoning explores how marginalized groups, including women and those who were enslaved, challenged power within the Confederate States of America during the Civil War. These modern interpretations have opened up new ways of understanding the Civil War, not just as a conflict between the northern states and the southern states, but as a battle for the future of freedom and democracy in the United States itself. Historians today are also looking at the Civil War through a global lens, considering its impact on international movements for democracy and abolition. The Civil War as a Global Conflict, which is a book edited by David T. Gleason and Simon Lewis, is a perfect example of this more modern shift. It shows how the war resonated far beyond the North American borders, including global conversations about nationalism and human rights. So, where does this conversation leave us? The historiography of the Civil War is dynamic, constantly evolving as new perspectives and voices enter the conversation. What excites me most about this research is uncovering how these shifts and interpretations reflect broader changes within societies within the United States. The Civil War isn't just a historical event. It's part of ongoing debates about identity, freedom, and the American experience. I hope to dive deeper into these evolving narratives through my research to examine how historians have redefined the war's significance in each generation and what that means for our current understanding of the past. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the historiography of the American Civil War. I look forward to seeing your research, and I hope that you look forward to seeing more of mine in the future. Thank you.